Okay, now that we've allowed the stone to set for at least 30 to 40 minutes, we can start scraping some of the wax off. I already did it here on the upper, and you want to use a tool that's not too sharp because you don't want to be damaging your acrylic base here. So I'll do it on the lower here. I'll scrape some of the wax off carefully, as much as I can, so that way it doesn't clog up the model trimmer. You want to be careful using hot water to boil this off, because you might end up distorting the denture. So you want to use minimal heat here if you are going to use any water. I like to just scrape it off as much as I can. And the inside is not so critical now. We can boil that wax off after we removed our acrylic base from the clinical remount cast. But certainly we want to expose the denture as much as we can, because we're going to use it as a guide to trim back the base of the cast. Okay. So we'll move on to the model trim, and I'll start with the upper one. This one's a little cleaner. And we're going to turn on our model trimmer by just pushing this on this toggle switch, and it's got an automatic water feed, so the water will feed on its own. There's a splash shield here that you want to use and put it in front of you. Make sure you don't get any residue on your clothing. So just by turning it on, the initial trim that I'm going to do, I'm going to trim the back of the cast a little bit, and you want to have your mid-palatal suture, or the midline of the denture, perpendicular to the disc, okay, initially. So I'm going to start by trimming the back of the model, and if you hold it upright, the mid-palatal suture, if you can imagine it here, is perpendicular to the table now. So now that I've done that, I'm going to turn it over to its side and approach at an angle, and you can see it here. This is the part of the model that's going to hit first, and I'm trying to keep the plane of occlusion now perpendicular to the disc as well. So you have to maintain that angle. Just get a flat surface going. You don't have to go all the way. And take a look at it. And as it looks now, I think I need to trim the back of the cast a little bit more, like so. So what I'm going to do is trim it on an angle again. So that way now this angle should be a little closer, and by having the plane of occlusion parallel to the base of the cast. So to look at it from a side view, it looks like this is parallel to the table. From a left to right perspective, maybe a little bit more. I have to maybe tilt it a little bit more, so I'll have to trim the left side slightly more. So I've created another angle there. So that looks pretty good so far. So I'm happy with that. And now we're going to trim the sides of the cast. And all we want to do, just like we do with our master cast, is create a 4 to 5 millimeter land area thickness all the way around. Initially trim it just to make it a little more manageable. Then you can fine-tune it some more. If it gets a little sticky here, what you can do is just splash a little water. And I'm just concentrating on having that land area uniform, 4 to 5 millimeters all the way around. And at the same time, trying to create some of a symmetrical base here. Make sure that the table is 90 degrees to the disc, so that way you're creating a square looking base. And that looks pretty good. So we have a uniform thickness all around, about 4 to 5 millimeters, symmetrical looking base. And I'll do the same thing with the upper. Sorry, the lower. So again, your initial trim will be having sort of the midline of the cast perpendicular to the disc. So you're not going in like this or like this. You're going in nice and square. And don't overdo it at this point. Just start it initially just to create a flat ledge. Now I can put this one on its side, and I'm looking at it from a top view here, and it looks like if I approach it like this, maintain this, should give me a nice square base as well. Don't want to trim it all the way. Leave it a little bit bulky in case you have to go back and trim it again. But as it looks now, it looks pretty good. Maybe this side is a little bit higher. Just a little bit higher on this side, so I'll turn it over and push a little more on this side. That looks good. Everything looks pretty parallel. Interior posteriorly, left to right, and the other side as well. So now I can continue a little further with the base of the cast. And once again, I'm just going to create a 4 to 5 millimeter land area all the way around. One thing you want to be careful with is not to over trim it back here. So I'm going to leave it a little bit bulky. So I'm not going to go right to the denture base. As you can see it, I left it a little bit wider. I can always trim that back with a burr to shape it. So symmetrical looking base somewhat. Got a bit of a bubble there, but that's not terribly bad. And I'm going to trim the thickness of the base a little bit more and just maintain the angle so I don't change anything. About there. Make sure we're still parallel with everything, so nothing really has changed. Just give it a once over again. And that looks pretty good. So if these feet fit together, we hold them together like this tentatively, we should have both models parallel to each other. Maybe this one looks a little bit off, so I might have to go back and trim this one. Just like that. That looks a whole lot better. So they're parallel, looking at it from a frontal view and a buckle view as well. All right, turn off the model trimmer, and then we'll go back in the lab and clean these up a little bit.